Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Tao with Fred. This is your host, Fred, and today I have something extra special for you. Lately, I've been doing a lot of these AI conversations, and they've been a lot of fun, and it helps me generate more content and spend more time thinking and less time talking, which is what I prefer to do. But once in a while, I like to demonstrate that there is a human behind this whole operation, and that human is me. And there's some things I want to talk about today. And it starts with the tarot deck, the tarot cards. I drew some tarot cards the other day and got a real fascinating reading that I wanted to share because it ties in really well with a lot of different things, actually, uh, including William James. And I'm sure we're going to go in a lot of different directions. So I'm pretty excited about it. If you like this channel, then please subscribe, please like, please leave comments, ring the bell, tell your friends, do all that stuff. Really trying to spread the word here with some cool videos, and I will try to do personal videos like this, but I'm going to continue also using my AI assistants to help me speak more. Even though when I do those videos with AI, it's still my original ideas that I formulate and think about. They just help me structure it and do the speaking, so I don't have to talk so much, like I said. But yeah, let's get into it. So these are the cards I picked. But first, let's back up a bit. I want to talk about something else that was on my mind a few weeks back before I did this tarot reading. I'd been thinking about William James. William James is a brilliant thinker. He is the brother of Mr. James, the novelist Henry James, who wrote many great novels. He's kind of fallen out of favor in the last in the last I don't know, several decades, but he's got some great short stories. He's a great author. Anyway, William James is he's a philosopher around the turn of the century, 1900-ish. He's written a book called On the Varieties of Religious Experience, which the name itself is pretty great. Basically, it's the series of lectures that he delivered in, I believe, 1902, and they were kind of centered around the notion that the religious experience is not something happening externally, but it's a reflection of things happening internally. What's going on in the human mind, the human psyche, that stirs us to engage in these religious beliefs, ideas, practices, and what have you. So I, of course, find that pretty fascinating. And William James is a pretty brilliant individual. He's just look at the guy. I mean, he looks smart as heck. If you look at the shape of his head, it's really big. I think phrenology was a big deal back then. Phrenology is the idea that by studying the shape of someone's head, you can understand a bit about them psychologically, and that's a theory that's been debunked. But even so, I think it was still a popular idea back in 1902 when these lectures were delivered. And there's no doubt in my mind that the shape of his head is impressive and suggestive of a towering intellect. So um, enough about phrenology. You can read about that. I know Melville talks about phrenology in Moby Dick, I think. Maybe it's in Billy Budd somewhere. He's talking about phrenology. Phrenology with a P, PH, which means it's from the Greek. But we're not going to talk about phrenology today. We want to talk about the tarot cards. And so the reason I was thinking about William James is because in this book, in these lectures, he mentions an idea about the sick soul. And I may paraphrase, and I may not get it perfectly correct, but anyway, the idea, as I understand it, is that there's you can divide the world into two sorts of people, which I kind of hate it when people do that, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's the happy-go-lucky people that everything's smooth and they don't really need to question what's going on in life. They live their life and things go well, things go smooth, and it's all altogether a satisfying endeavor. And then there's people, uh, which James refers to as the sick souls. The sick soul is an individual who questions things and worries about things and wonders about things and is altogether not entirely satisfied with this project called being human, and that leads them to explore different ideas and delve into their psyche and seek spiritual meaning behind things. And it has a sort of a negative sound to it, the sick soul. But what it means is they're ultimately more questioning, more seeking, more curious about what goes on in the realm of metaphysics and what have you. So I thought that was a pretty interesting notion and kind of resonated with me as someone who does spend a lot of time thinking about these spiritual theological questions. And sometimes I'm not altogether satisfied with the way life happens, but for the most part, I'm pretty pretty uh, pretty okay with life. But so maybe I'm kind of sitting in the middle between the happy-go-lucky and the sick soul, but I can definitely uh, um, relate, sympathize with this idea of a sick soul. And of course, it's entirely possible that you can vacillate in between being a sick soul and being a happy-go-lucky soul. There's no reason to draw sharp lines here. Anyway, that had been on my mind. And then the other day, I drew some tarot cards. So with that in mind, here's the four cards I drew. I started out with the far left there, um, and then I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. I'll get into the details in a second, but so I thought, you know what, I'm going to draw a few more cards and see if I can get a little bit more clarity here. I did not have any specific question in mind when I drew the cards, as is often recommended if you're doing a tarot reading, that you have some specific question formed in your mind, and then you turn to the tarot cards for some insight, some clarity, some message. Um, I would not call it a fortune telling tool by any means, but just a tool to trigger the intuition, the intuitive side of the mind, and tap into something that you already know on some unconscious level, most likely. You're not revealing um, secrets of the universe with this, but hidden secrets within your own mind, within your own the depths of your own psyche may come to the surface. So um, I often find it pretty helpful. Sometimes it's not that helpful, but more often than not, it is, and it hasn't solved any riddles of the universe, but it has given me a lot to think about. So this was one of those cases where I had a lot to think about. So those are the four cards I drew. Let's go through them one by one. Um, so yeah, the first one, just take one look at that. That's the Nine of Swords. Um, it does not have a positive uh, image there. Um, anyone with no background in tarot cards would pick up that card and say, no, this is not a positive outlook. Things are not going well in my life. Whatever the question was, the answer is not going to be a happy, positive one. And that's a great place to start with just the image, because tarot cards are really about they're a set of images. This is the Rider Waite deck that I used. It's the most popular, I think, at least in the Western world. Um, the illustrations are really good. They're really archetypal, and and it's like a picture is worth a whole lot of words, as the cliche goes. And so it's really good to just kind of sit with those images before you try to delve into like specific meanings, because a lot of times those meanings are better communicated with images than they are with words. That's why mythology works so well. You have stories that capture really really complicated ideas, and or sometimes simple ideas, but ideas that are hard to put into words, or if you did put them into words, they wouldn't resonate as well. So you put it into a story, you put it in a picture, and it transmits the feeling, the idea in a holistic way, um, and it can be pretty effective. Anyway, what's going on here is yeah, he's sitting up in bed. The swords are sorry, swords are associated with the air element. So the swords are about intellectual thinking, the mind, the frontal cortex, as opposed to the intuitive side of thinking. This is very intellectual thinking. So obviously he's sitting up in bed. It looks to be nighttime. He looks to be having trouble sleeping. Um, so there's some sense of insomnia here, anxiety. Um, in terms of the four cards, if we built a storyline out of it, this would be the descent, the the beginning of the story. You could associate this card with the anxiety, like I said, suffering. I put a few bullet points here just to kind of anchor us somewhere with some associations. Isolation. He's alone in bed, um, alone with his thoughts. His thoughts are, sometimes you're sitting in bed, you can't sleep, cycling through one. It could be just one thought that just won't stop. And this is kind of what we see here. There's a certain type of awareness happening, an awareness into intellectual, that there's something that needs to be resolved, some problem that he's facing. Um, you could also associate this card with a long night of the soul, the long journey, the soul's journey, um, which is a dark journey, but in the end, it does have a resolution, and it's an important journey. And anxiety is a valuable um, feeling. It's not something we want to spend the majority of our time in that state, but there's a reason why we experience that. Everyone's experienced it, and it's not an experience or feeling to be entirely shunned, but it can have its uses. It can stimulate some certain ideas and point you towards a solution at some point if you're using it constructively. As far as associations with different characters in the literature, mythology, someplace I like to go with these cards, and when I'm looking at ideas, it helps me to tie it into someone else's storyline, and then kind of circle it back to my own story. So Hamlet would be the first one that comes to mind. To be or not to be. He's contemplating, like, should I live? Should I die? Should I just end it all right now? Um, Hamlet, throughout the play, is plagued by indecisiveness, anxiety. What should he do? Should he do anything? He ends up not really doing anything because he's stuck. He's stuck in the cycle of anxiety and never really escapes it. And so it's kind of a failure of anxiety in that case. Dostoevsky has some great characters that resonate with his state of mind. Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment. He's really torn up psychologically, internally. The narrator of Notes from Underground. I think the first line of that novel, something like, "I am a sick soul. I'm a I'm a sick man. I am a worried man. My liver is diseased," something like that. Sorry, I don't have it off the top of my head, word for word. But just Google it or something. You find the first sentence of that novel, and you can tell already, like, geez, here's a sick soul, if ever there was one. And it fits with that James Joyce idea, and also fits with this card really well. So um, we could tie it into other characters. I think Stephen Dedalus from the James Joyce's um, the Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man. He's the same character that's followed through the novel Ulysses, but in Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, he's in this. He's a young man struggling with what to do with life. What's the role of family? What's the role of the church? What's the role of the country in his life? And he's really twisted and torn about how to get beyond that. And eventually, he does get beyond it, using art as a way to transcend these uh, these intellectual struggles. Um, anyway, some good thinking points there. And so that was the card I started with, and I thought, my life isn't going that bad at the moment. I'm not really sure why I got this card. Um, does kind of resonate with the sick soul idea, but let's keep going and see what the other cards have to say. So, without any specific question in mind, again, and without any specific structure, sometimes when you pick 4, 5, 6 cards, you'll set them up like in the Celtic cross or one of these different tarot readings. But this, I just picked 4 cards in a row, and just to see what would happen. But they just form this really nice arc, And so that's what we're going to look at here. So the next one, the Empress. So this was a much more positive. So after seeing the guy in bed with the swords, I thought, okay, this is reassuring. Things things are going to be okay. Um, I don't have to slice off my limbs in my sleep. Um, I'm going to get through it. So the Empress is a Mother Earth symbol for sure. So the Earth element, we went from the air element to the Earth element, being very grounded. This is about fertility, um, creativity, regeneration is a key word associated with this card, which really follows up nicely to the previous card, being in that state of anxiety and then pulling out of it with some regenerative ideas. So it's a healing card. It's about creativity in all its forms, creativity of producing art as well as producing offspring, um, um, problem solving, solution finding, just being creative in all those different ways. Very feminine, of course. We've got the feminine symbol there. It's a female empress, very motherly, in her big cozy chair there. Um, there's some grain growing in the foreground. The grain we could associate with the Greek goddess Demeter or Demeter. I think it's Demeter, but um, and and the goddess Isis also. These are fertility goddesses who restore life and associated with the return of spring, when the plants and flowers and things die back in the winter, and then they return on this cyclical basis every season, every springtime. The earth comes back to life, and that's kind of the association we have here. So that was pretty positive, and so I like the way this is going so far. So the next card I pulled was the Knight of Wands. So the knight in the tarot deck usually brings a positive message. Um, he brings energy, he brings action, he brings motion. He's got the wand, the staff, the stick, which is associated with the fire element. So we went from air to earth to fire. So it's really nice transition, nice sequence there. Um, so this one is associated with fire, a rekindling, which is also really positive. It kind of fits with that regeneration of the Empress card. Um, it's a forward motion. Um, Forward is usually not spelled that way, but we get the idea. Um, Forward. Oh, that's like the first chapter in a book. The forward. Yeah, sorry about that. Courage, tenacity might be a word to associate with this. Just very active, not to be stopped, not to be put down. Um, just yeah, confident. He's got the pyramids in the background there, so he's on a somewhat epic journey. Um, so this card could be associated with came up with Gilgamesh, heroic journeys. Gilgamesh, um, who returns um, after his friend Enkidu dies, and he continues his journey. He's not to be stopped by some small defeats or large defeats for that matter. He keeps on going um, on his quest. Prometheus, bringing fire to humans, as an association we could make there. So interesting card. Um, so again, a really nice progression from the Nine of Swords to the Empress to this, and finally I pulled the World card, which is maybe the best card in the whole deck. So felt really good pulling this card out and seeing it. And this is a symbol of wholeness. You see that circle going around the woman in the middle there. It looks a little bit like an Ouroboros, the snake that swallows its tail. Um, you have the four winds in the corner, the four apostles, there's four animals. Um, so the four directions. So this is a symbol of wholeness, integration, the idea that everything belongs, acceptance. Sorry, another typo there. It's supposed to say acceptance, accepting everything, both the good and the bad. And so this isn't It's you can read it as a very positive symbol for sure, but it's not about eliminating the negativity. It's about integrating all the negative. So recognizing and accepting all the things, including the Nine of Swords and the sickness that we encounter, the anxiety, the depression, these different negative states are all part of the human experience and all need to be accepted and embraced. We don't want to dwell in those states of mind, of course. If you're depressed 80 or 90% of the time, that's a different type of situation. But equally, if you're ecstatic and absolutely thrilled and happy with life 90% of the time, then maybe you're missing out on part of the human experience of yeah, what it means to live a complete life. And there are things to be sad about, things to struggle with, um, things to stimulate our personal growth. All of those things need to be embraced. This is about that wholeness, the integration of all those, the good, the bad, the messy, um, and recognizing that's all part of us. It's a kind of what Carl Jung would say is the integration of the self, embracing the shadow, which would be that first card, the Nine of Swords. We could read that as the shadow, in the darkness there. It's a whole lot of swords. They seem stacked up behind that guy's head, and there's a lot of them. It's scary and intimidating, and you don't want to go there, but it's important that you go there, briefly, but to go there and find value with what's happening in that dark space. Um, why why are there so many swords? Where are they pointing to? You can see those swords all point in the same direction. If we go back to that card. Um, so it's really, I just really see a nice connection from that sequence of those four cards and connecting the last card with this card. Um, gave me a whole lot to think about, that's for sure. And I'm gonna continue thinking about it. And there they are again. There's the whole sequence together. Um, yeah, so that was it. That was my tarot journey. I think it's a real a perfect illustration of hero's quest from the descent through the regeneration to the continued forward motion into the final resolution of wholeness and integration. Um, yeah, the associations I had also with that world card were the yin yang. Yin yang is that circle where it's got the dark and the light together. Um, Again, it's not about completely um, rejecting and eliminating all the negativity, but embracing it and finding its proper place in the balance with the positivity and the light. Um, so there's the characters of mythological and literary figures we could associate with that would be pretty much any hero's quest, classic hero's quest story. But the Buddha would be one, um, sitting under the Bodhi tree. Um, the Osiris, um, uh, who was torn into 42 pieces, and Isis had to travel all over the countryside of Egypt to find all the different pieces and put him back together again, and reconstitute his body into the wholeness. So the restoration of that wholeness. Osiris is a really good image of that. Um, Unfortunately, Hamlet, um, who I associated with that first card, Hamlet never really made it through this whole journey. Hamlet just kind of cycled and cycled through the Nine of Swords and never got out of it. So that's an interesting one. And I really like to think about these things in terms of those different literary characters and mythological characters. A lot of people, Hamlet is a perfect example of someone to learn from. A lot of people, I think I'll just end on this note. A lot of people see um, read the Bible, for example, and they think it's really important that we accept it as a true historical, factual story of things that happened back in the Holy Land, 2,000 years ago or 3,000 years ago if you go back to the Old Testament. And um, I really don't see that. Um, Hamlet is a work of fiction, and there's so much to be learned from that story. And if it were a factual historical story of the Prince of Denmark named Hamlet, I don't see that making the story any more valuable. Um, in fact, you could argue that it's more valuable as a work of fiction. There's more readings you could give to it, the more valences that you can see when you have a work of literature open to many different interpretations, as opposed to a historical event that happened, one way and one way only. Um, so the idea that the Bible is ahistorical um, does not detract from its value for me. I think it's more valuable knowing that it's a work of a collection of stories. People like to criticize the Bible and say, "Oh, it's just a bunch of fairy tales and blah blah blah." It's like, well, I think that's the highest compliment you can give it to say it's a collection of fairy tales. Sorry if this offends anyone out there, but fairy tales are extremely useful, like instructional story uh, stories that we can learn from. So I think that's about the best reading you could give it if you want to explore it as a tool for spiritual growth and personal development. And so I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you enjoyed this little tour through the tarot deck and my personal journey through the cards. Um, I had a lot of fun with it. I'm going to come back next week with more ideas like this, tying different things together. As you can see, I really love bringing different traditions, different ideas together. So this was the tarot deck meets William James meets Hamlet. Next week, I'm not sure where we're going to go, but I do accept requests, and I'll take your ideas into consideration. I'm always looking for new territory to explore, and I want to thank you for joining me on this exploration. Take care. See you next week.